wanted to ask, you've tried a lot of different lineups, and 3, 4, 5 have been real consistent. But what have you learned so far in the season about what's working well with where guys are fitting well in the lineup?
Well, I still think, Owen, we're not near to where we're going to be offensively. I think, we are, and the players will be the first to tell you, we're not clicking on all cylinders offensively. We have some guys who have been in some good stretches. We've had some guys who've had a slow start from the get-go and maintained it. But I do think the way, the order looks, I think that's right. At the top of the order, Tapia and Hampson have shared most of those duties. They have the capability to have an on-base percentage and add some speed, to our lineup. I know we have Mac up there at the top of the lineup also. He was swinging about it well. Earlier continues. And I do think there's going to be a bigger on-base component with Mac. The walks haven't come at the rate that we're accustomed to Mac having. He's been a little bit more aggressive earlier in the count. I think that's been a big part of that. But I do think that the walk is in Mac's game because I think he does have good strike zone awareness and discipline. The bottom of the order, the catchers, have been a little bit light. Tom has come on recently with some good swings. Daza, Fuentes, the Hampsons down there. Those guys can do some things, but it will be fluid. I think as every lineup is in baseball. You look at teams and their roster construction, it changes. Some teams a little bit more drastic than others. Other teams sort of keep it pretty much the same, and there's a couple moving parts, but we'll continue to tinker with it. As we give guys days off, and if guy suffers an injury and he's out for a few days, we'll make the adjustments accordingly.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Yes. First of all, do you nominate Ramel Tapia for walk-off bat flip as maybe best actor there?
Well, I think we can nominate Tap for or something to do with the hair and his look.
Yeah, we'll nominate his wardrobe and or hair and makeup guy. How about that? Hey, speaking of Tap, thought it was a good game from him last night. Draws a walk early. That 111 pitch at bat, maybe he fouled off ball 4 a couple of times, but are you seeing the balance between aggression and strike zone control the last 5 games?
Yeah, the last 10 days it's been much better as far as his selectivity and going into the at bat. I think with a more polished approach. I think earlier in the year a little bit too aggressive, a little bit overly anxious to hit. Now we're seeing more of a calmness and going through an at bat where I think it helps him. Seeing a couple of pitches. He's not afraid to hit with 2 strikes. All the things that you look for with good hitters, he's doing right now. He's ready to hit the first pitch if it's a good pitch to hit. But he's also shown the ability to check off a pitch when it's out of the strike zone. That's what we like. That's what I like to see.
Also, you've got a guy, Hampson, who I know he's comfortable leading off and using his aggression there, but you're seeing some pretty good at-bats from him down lower in the order. Is he a guy that you have to remind, hey, it's the same at-bat, or how does he adjust between moving up and down in the order?
Well, I think he can handle it. I think now, he's given us good at-bats, no matter where he hits, first, second, deeper down the lineup. I think what's been impressive to us is that, his chase rate is much improved. He's not swinging at that low breaking ball down and away from him. He's not swinging at that left-hander change up down and away from him. He's laying off a little bit of the high fastball. Or if he does swing at that ball at the top of his zone, he's fouling it off and not swinging through it. So we're seeing some good things from Happy, recently. So the trick is to, continue and have it, last, right? That's the thing, over, weeks into months, the same types of at-bats and not, get into any sort of funk.
Thanks, buddy.
Sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
Hi, buddy. Good afternoon. Where do you see Charlie Blackmon right now? My personal opinion, it looks like his swing just doesn't look quite the way I'm used to seeing it, but you would know more about that than I would.
Well, I think I talked about it yesterday. He's in that spot that no hitter wants to get into, where he's a little bit behind the fastball and ahead of the breaking ball. So timing's off. You can tell by the number of foul balls that are happening that on the harder velocity pitches and even the balls that are pulled foul, he's ahead of the off speed. So the timing's just a little bit off. And at this level, your timing has to be there, or it's going to be a miss hit. And that's sort of where Charlie is right now. Working hard on his timing, working hard on his rhythm, but we're seeing the bat speed. We're seeing the things that we look for physically. I think just with Chuck, I think there's a little bit of frustration. Maybe the swings are getting a little hard and a little big, but he'll be fine. It's for me, it's a little bit of an aberration what's going on right now with Charlie.
We know that Charlie is such a slave to his routine, and he does his own workouts. I mean, he's just really narrow vision, I guess you could say. But when he gets in a funk like this, does he have folks he reaches out to, or does he try to figure it out himself?
Well, I think it's a combination, but again, Charlie is like you mentioned, he's a lot of his success is through hard work and self-taught. He's gonna grind through this, like only he can, which is with a lot of work, a lot of preparation, video, cage work, but also, he's talking to our hitting coaches, and again, whether it's anybody away from the field, his dad, or anybody else, I'm not sure, but I think Charlie's one of those guys where the mental toughness that he brings. I would suspect that he doesn't reach out to a lot of people.
And one more for me, buddy. A number of your players have brought this up to us without us prompting them. And they've mentioned how good they think the defense all around has played this year. We haven't asked you a whole lot about that, but how pleased are you with the way your defense has come together in the early going?
Very pleased. And we saw it in spring training. I thought, the exhibition season down in Arizona really highlighted the fact that it looked like we're going to be a good defensive team. We know Trevor's solid. I think Trevor's a Gold Glove candidate every year. We saw Josh Fuentes last year at either corner, first or third, play above average defense. We've talked about McMahon. I think Campy is solid no matter where you put him. You put him in center field, you can go get balls. Put him in the infield, it's fine. Daza's fine. Tap is, we've talked a lot about Tap the last couple of years, but he's incrementally improving. Charlie's steady in the outfield. I think our catchers are solid. Sam, when he's in there, plays I think for me, an above average defense. Trejo was on the club, replacing Owens, were our solid defenders. So, and our pitchers do a good job too. I think Crony gives us a big target at first base. I know there's been a couple of hiccups there, but he's done some balls out of the dirt. He snagged some line drive, made a good play yesterday on Harper's ground ball that we turned into a double play. Also got the line drive off of Gregoris's bat, almost turned that into a double play. Good base running by Real Muto. So, we're fine. I mean, I don't want to change this, but I sort of want to tout it too. So I'm glad you brought that to our attention.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, hey, buddy, can you give us an update on Kyle Freeland's bullpen? How many pitches he threw, what he did?
Yeah, Mark, good observation. He threw a regular Kyle Freeland bullpen today. right around 25 pitches, threw the ball very well, probably at, 85, 90% effort level, no problems. Ball came out, very good. Delivery looked good. No issues with the shoulder. So very, very encouraging today. Brendan Rodgers, if you're going to ask about him, he's going to take grounders again today on the infield. He hit yesterday, as he's done for the last couple of weeks. I think he's going to, in the outfield, he's going to make some turns and make some cuts, under a certain level of effort. So he's progressing as well. But good news on Kyle. Good news on both guys.
Thanks, bud.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Well, you beat me on the Rodgers question. As I watched him take infield, I was going to ask you how he was doing, but
Yeah, he's doing fine. We just got to get into the point where the exertion level and the effort of running, passes the test to be able to play in games and to really get worked out on an infield practice. But he's getting there.
When you look at Freeland, do you ever look at, or not Freeland, but Story, the completeness of his game? He's a good defensive player. He steals bases. He hits home runs. He hits for average. Does that impact you at all when you see that?
Yeah, I think he's one of the best players in the game because of the total skill set that he has. Playing a premium position, probably the most premium position on the diamond. And he plays it, well above average on the scouting scale. Good arm, good range, good hands, everything you look for in a big league shortstop. And then you put it around on offense. Here's a guy with power. I think he's going to hit for an average. That's above average too. He can steal bases. He hits the ball to all fields. You can't say enough good things about him. Tracy, he's a really, really good player.
Thank you.
All righty, for our last question, we'll go to Noah.
Hey, bud. For the mainly my questions are follow-ups on some of the other ones earlier. For Charlie Blackmon, have you considered possibly moving him down in the lineup so he regains his confidence, essentially?
We've talked about that as a group. We're not ready to do that just yet. We'll see in due time if this continues. But yes, we have thought about it.
Okay. On the injury front, do you happen to have an update on Peter Lambert and how he's doing?
Yeah, Peter's progressing. Again, he's been, there's a pretty regimented throwing program that all Tommy John guys go through, and he's hitting every mark on that. It's the throwing started in Arizona, and it gradually progresses to ultimately where he gets to the mound and starts, throwing off the slope and the catcher down, and that, difference of, the angle of throwing from a mound, down to the plate is different than throwing on flat ground. But, he's hitting every marker. I'm not sure exactly when the mound is coming, but I would think probably within the next 3 weeks. So, Peter will probably get up there on the mound or sooner, but still he's months away from, any sort of major league